What I see is going on around the country right now is attempts to limit votes. And elections that I've seen in the past, when a party loses a presidential election in a major way, or they suddenly lose states like Georgia, since you brought up Senator Warnock, they step back and they say, okay, what do we have to do to reach out to voters in a different way? What is it about our positions on issues that caused us to lose the presidential race? Or how do we do a better job of communicating with voters? Or what should our candidates be when we put them up? That's usually what parties do when they look back both on the Democratic and Republican side in the past after an election. And instead, what I see here with these voter limitations and the impingement on the freedom to vote in these states, it's instead looking at it the opposite way. And that is saying, okay, a bunch of people voted in 2020 because they figured out and they made it easier for them to vote by mail, or they didn't have to get notary signatures through a hospital window while they had COVID in order to get an absentee ballot, or they allowed for early voting in bigger ways because it was more healthy and safer in the middle of a pandemic. And so what I see now is a rolling back of those changes. And to me, the answer should not be, let's make sure these people don't vote again. The answer should be, how do we reach out to people to get them on our side to vote for us? So that's why I have a problem with waiting on this.
Madam Chairman.
Senator Cruz, I just knew you'd want to respond to that.
Well, with all respect, that was a wildly inaccurate and partisan assessment of what is occurring. And I would note that this bill was drafted following the 2016 election, after Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton. And the senator from Minnesota suggested when a party loses, they reassess their positions. The Democratic Party didn't do that. The Democratic Party insisted for 4 years that Hillary won and the election was stolen, and it was Russia that stole it. And for 4 years, we heard that over and over and over.
You must not have been in the same electoral college room as me.
Madam Chairman, I'm speaking.
Okay.
The Democratic Party did not reassess any policies, but instead, the response to losing that election in 2016 was to introduce this bill to cause millions of illegal immigrants to be registered to vote for Democrats, to cause felons and criminals to be registered to vote for Democrats. And I would note that now in the 2020 election, there were a number of closely competitive Senate races, including in the state of Iowa, including the state of North Carolina, including in the state of Alaska, including in the state of Montana, that Democrats spent hundreds of millions of dollars trying to win, and they lost. And so what does this bill try to do? Change the electorates, and let's get a whole bunch of illegal voters to change the composition of the electorate, along with a partisan Federal Election Commission that will be counted on. The Chuck Schumer Election Commission, like clockwork, there will be an October surprise. Who are the vulnerable Republicans? Who are Republicans in close races? Boom. The Chuck Schumer Federal Election Commission will announce investigations and fines directed against them. This is a brazen power grab by the Democrats because you've decided democracy isn't worth it. You want to fix the game so the voters don't have control over our election.
Okay, so I have so much issues with what you just said, because I'm thinking back to 2016 when, in fact, Hillary Clinton conceded the election, when, in fact, we had an electoral college. I know because Senator Blunt and I were in charge of it, and Vice President Biden was presiding over it, and it went through. We didn't object to those results. Then let's fast forward to the day of the insurrection, to January 6th, when in fact you, Senator Cruz, not all of your colleagues here today, you were contesting the Electoral College. You were leading, one of the leaders on the effort to say that the election results were not correct. And so you wonder why we want to make sure that people have the right to vote. Well, it's because of this kind of rhetoric and this kind of behavior and an insurrection at the Capitol and a former president that is still maintaining that he somehow won the election when we all know it's not true. And so that's why, if you ask why we are still interested in protecting our democracy from that day of January 6th on, I think that's your answer.
Well, Chairman Klobuchar, this bill had nothing to do with the 2020 election because it was drafted 4 years earlier. This bill has everything to do with Democrats trying to rig the election to stay in power and to disenfranchise voters. That's what this election is about. And by the way, Hillary Clinton insisted after the election she didn't lose. And not only that, Hillary Clinton advised Joe Biden, under no circumstances should you concede. So the ahistorical rewriting of what occurred is not accurate. And rigging the system to take away the rights of voters, this is designed to keep Democrats in power for 100 years. And it is fundamentally corrupt.